Okay, so I've got a brief video talking about some changes in the Harlequins, some good new Harlequin rules, things that let you pick up some tactics, and I fully recognize that with the incoming release of the next edition, all of these ideas may become irrelevant. But who knows? And who knows when that's going to come out, because Games Workshop has announced it at Adepticon, but they have not really set out a date, and we don't know what's going to happen in terms of rules and points and combat and all that. But, you know, here we go. Okay, so Harlequins with the second book in Gathering Storm, The Fracture of Biltan, have some big changes to let you really get some boosts to the army. Number one, there are two characters, Yvraine and the Visarch, that can be taken as HQs to any Eldar army, and because of that, you can literally take them as an HQ choice with Harlequins in a CAD, so Combined Arms Detachment, or an Allied Detachment. And if you do that, then, you know, Harlequins get objective secured. I don't know if it really has a huge benefit if you do it, but the two characters, both Yvraine and the Visarch, do have some useful powers. They do play in with the Harlequins well. The only problem is they are not technically. They are a different faction, so they can't start in a Harlequin transport, and that itself is a limitation. I think it's something worth considering were you to take them. But you don't have to. The other issue is that if you were to take one with the Harlequins, then it allows you to consider taking artifacts. But let's move on to the real benefit that I see for the Fracture of Biltan and the Harlequins, and that is the new detachment. Okay, it's the Reborn War Host detachment. And were you to want to do this with Harlequins, I think you get the big benefit. And they actually get benefits that the other Eldar armies don't, because the Harlequins don't lose, for the most part, any of their special Harlequin rules. And, you know, Dark Eldar, for example, lose Feel No Pain. They lose power from pain when they take the Reborn War Host. Harlequins don't have rules like that they lose. So let's look at what you do. You have to take a HQ and two troop choices. And if you're really going for a Harlequin-themed army, you could choose just an HQ from the Eldar or the Dark Eldar book, and everything else could be Harlequin. I don't know if that's really the way to go, but this is a Harlequin-themed review, so we're going to go that way. Personally, I think you benefit the most were you to take a generic HQ choice. You can either minimize as much as possible and take a 10-point Court of the Archon, so you just take a single Lamian. She's only 10 points, she's an HQ, and then everything else you take is Harlequin. Not sure if that's the way to go. I would personally take one that can acquire artifacts, because the artifacts from the Reborn War Host are pretty useful and can help out the Harlequins, but we'll get into that in a second. I think the Succubus might be the way to go, and if you take her, then you can skip taking a transport with the Harlequins and use her webway portal. And I think she works a little bit better than the Archon. The other options would be to take a Farseer or a Warlock Conclave, or an Artarch, and the Artarch and the Farseer have such great rules and such good psychics that work well with the Harlequins that they're an option. Finally, there's Lilith Hesprax, and she's a good choice to take with them, but since she can't start in a transport, I think she kind of is limited. And then, of course, you know, there's all the Phoenix Lords and things like that. Anyways, I would personally go with a customizable, quote, generic HQ, so Autarch, Farseer, Succubus, or Archon, and then take two troop choices. And, you know, if you're really going for the most points you can put into Harlequin formations, then I would take the cheapest troop choices, so either Rangers or Wind Riders, or maybe Cabalite Warriors or Witches, and just kind of minimize with them. But there's a lot you can do there. Alright, then what the Reborn War Host lets you do is take formations, and all of the Harlequin formations are in play. So you can choose the one you like the most. You can only choose one, but that could be the rest of your army. I usually choose the Sheogorath's Revenge, but any of the other ones work well. Cast of Players is a good one. The Jest, the Serpent's Brood has some cool uses with this. So they're all there. All right. So what do you get? The big thing you get that really helps Harlequins and doesn't work as well for some of the other Eldar armies, it works great for them, but not, I think, as well as for the Harlequins, is that you can use the Ynnari powers. So they get the Soul Burst ability, and that means that Harlequins have a great option of getting first turn charges. They can run and charge if they choose the right formation, and they could run in movement, shooting, or assault phase because of the Soul Burst actions, depending on who gets killed. So let's look at this. The big issue for Harlequins that I see is strength from death. So if a unit is killed, you can move, you can run, or turbo boost, as if it was your shooting phrase, or you can make a charge move. And the Harlequins are actually really likely to kill something, and one of the problems I have in playing them is that a lot of times you could kill something like a transport, or kill a unit, and you don't want to because you actually want to be in the assault. It's the safest place for Harlequins. Now, in the shooting phase, you could blow up a drop pod and then charge the Marines, or blow up a Land Raider or a Rhino or something. The guys pile out, and you could charge them, or you could charge someone else in the shooting phase. And if you wipe that squad out, then in your assault phase, I think you can assault someone else. I'm not entirely sure if that's true because of the rules for shooting. But let's say you didn't shoot, you assault one unit, and then in your assault phase you assault another one. So those are all options. I think Harlequins are the ones that benefit the most from this because the other Eldar aren't quite as close combat oriented. And then, of course, you get the Revenant Psyker powers if you want on your Shadow Seers. And I think the Harlequin ones are already a pretty good option. So, it's something to think about. Okay. The big second benefit you get is any character that could take artifacts from their codex, so be it Dark Eldar, or Harlequin, can take artifacts of Ynnari instead. So let's talk about the artifacts of Ynnari and the way I would see them being used for Harlequins. There's the Locket. The Locket basically gives you wounds back if you cause wounds to an opponent. Or not wounds, you have to remove models. And it's a cheap item, and I think if you ever thought the Solitaire was impossible to kill with Sheogorath's Revenge, where he's re-rolling ones on his invulnerable save, giving him the ability to gain wounds back after killing models will make him one of the most impossible to remove models in the Harlequin army. So I would definitely say he benefits from that artifact. The Hungering Blade, no, I would skip it. The Lost Shroud, now this is expensive, but if you think about the cost of the rainments, the Rain Mist raiment or Star Mist raiment, which is a Harlequin and 3+ invulnerable save if you run. This is only a little bit more expensive, and it takes away independent character. So if you gave it to a troop master who doesn't have independent character anyways, he's still the sergeant for the squad, he's potentially your warlord, and now he has Eternal Warrior, Feel No Pain, and It Will Not Die. So it makes him very likely to survive, or a lot more than the 3+ invulnerable rerolling ones. Mirror Gaze, this is not bad, it's expensive. It might be good to give to Solitaire. I'm not sure it's worth giving to troop masters. It's kind of expensive for that, considering the number of wounds they have and the fact that they do die to strength 6. The Song of Yenneed is just a pistol. It's poison 2. It forces morale checks, but they're better weapons. And then Soul Snare, which is a instant death strength 3 AP2 blast. one shot only. Yeah, I would skip on this. At strength 3, it's really not likely to be killing the things you absolutely want to kill for this many points. It's not going to kill monstrous creatures, and it's only killing Space Marines on a 5 plus, so I would skip it. Now, these artifacts could also be used on your Warlord if you choose to take a Warlord from one of the other Eldar books. So they get the big boost from it, and it's definitely helpful to them. So you could take a Succubus or an Archon or a Autarch with one of these, and say an Autarch on a bike with the locket, or with say a Farseer with the Lost Shroud. Okay, the last thing to cover with the Harlequins is what you get out of Deathmask, and probably been covered by other people already. However, I'm going to just add it to this review because it has a few additions that make Harlequins just a little bit better. So the one or the best benefit that I see in this little supplement is Irium's Spectre. He's a Death Jester, and for 5 points he's basically getting the Shrouded rule. And unlike the Hero's Path, he doesn't lose the independent character rule when he has this, so it allows him to, 1, give Shrouded to his unit, and 2, it makes him far more survivable if he's sitting up in terrain sniping people with his Shrieker Cannon. And so I think that his rule says in the supplement that you can take him anytime. You could take a Death Jester for the price of a Haywire Grenade, and 5 more points, you get a guy with a Haywire Grenade and Shrouded. So I think this is a definite plus. On the other additions are the 2 troops, which have names, so they're basically like named troops, and you can take them in place of troops in other formations. There's Death's Companions in the company of the Threefold Stranger. They're both okay. I don't really like the way that they mix and match stuff up with the Harlequins, but that's just a personal playing style. What they really get point-wise is 1 always gets to run and charge in the same turn. That's Death's Companions. Being that so many Harlequin formations already give you this after round 1, I'm not sure this is a giant benefit. And then the company of the Threefold Stranger can run and shoot, but they're Harlequins, so they're not shooting any long-range, great weapons. They're basically shooting pistols. So it's okay, being that they could run, shoot, and charge if they're in a formation that lets them do this. That is a benefit to the company of the Threefold Stranger. But they're not, kitted out to really take down a whole lot because they have kisses on just a few players, and the rest have either 1 power sword or just some close combat weapons. So I think they're okay as Harlequins, but I wouldn't, bet the bank on them. The Blades of Fate, these have the ability to reroll a Jinx save, so it's like they're in Falchu's Blade, but they're not. Which, if you're going to just take a set of jet bikes, it's a good option. They have Zephyr Glaives. They don't have the Haywire Cannons. They're just straight up bikes, so they're Shuriken Cannons. They don't have the Plasma Grenades, the bolos, the Plasma bolos. So that's something to consider with them. I guess point-wise, it's okay that they can reroll the Jinx saves if you're going to Jink with the bikes. Being that these guys are armed for close combat with Zephyr Glaives, that might be a good option. And then there's the formation, the Coherian Host, after the Serpent's Breath. The Serpent's Breath, I didn't see any change in this from what's in the Codex, so I can just kind of ignore it. The Coherian Host, so it's a formation that takes up all of the formations in the supplement. I don't think it's worth it. I don't personally like the way they kitted out the troops, so I think they're not worth the points you're putting into them. But were you to take it, it does give Eldrad Eternal Warrior, which is good for Eldrad because he doesn't have to stay with these guys. So if you're playing a big game, a really big game, then Eldrad's with someone else and he has Eternal Warrior, so that's good. And the Ephemeral Phantoms basically lets you reroll your invulnerable save. It basically says on a 6, you didn't take a wound. So it's like 6 up, feel no pain, but it works whether it's instant death or not. I don't think it's a bad option for the Harlequins, but I would personally have kitted out the troops differently. And it doesn't say they can't take transports, so they could take transports in this formation, and unless it gets ruled on in the next edition, you know, something where they say they can't take these things or whatever. But I'm less impressed with that formation. I'm mostly impressed with the Death Jester in terms of utility in this this tiny supplement.